back. That's right. We took a little bit of a hiatus, but that is because we were focusing on our business. We were really focused on growing areas of our business as public speaking. We had camps coming up. We had a lot going on.
We did, yeah.
And we felt that the podcast wasn't getting the attention it deserved.
Yeah.
It was almost like an afterthought. And we felt at that time it was best to take a step back rather than to continue to not really have our hearts into it.
Yeah. And we said that from the start, that we knew we'd be back and doing it at a time where we maybe had our schedule more under control. But I think we talked about it for a little while, like for probably like a month and a half, 2 months. We're like, are we doing too much? Are we forcing things? Are we not, like you said, kind of half-heartedly trying to check a box?
Yeah.
And it was the smart thing to do, to step away from the podcast for a little while.
Yeah.
But I think I got some juice for it now, man. I'm excited to get back into this.
Yeah, we're re-energized, we're refocused.
Yeah.
During that time, we were writing, or still are writing, wellness programs for schools and businesses.
Yep.
We also were focusing on our re-entry work with Psycholsky Reintegration, where we're preparing inmates for their release back into society. And it's actually why we're speaking on today's topic. We'll go into it, but so during this time, we submitted a grant application for us to be focused, or I should say allow us to focus more of our attention on the reentry work, where we're reducing recidivism in Connecticut, and we're preparing the inmates for their release, giving them tools so that they can maybe combat with triggers, they can grow their emotional intelligence. So we put a lot of our eggs in that basket when we applied for that grant. Now, unfortunately, we weren't qualified for that.
No.
It took about a month for us to get that email.
Yeah.
And during that time, we had a lot of dreams. We saw that, hey, we could ultimately walk away from our full-time jobs, which was freedom.
Yep.
We then also saw, wow, we could really put the attention in our business that it deserves, where we could grow our public speaking. We could also grow our wellness programs.
Yeah.
We could network a lot more. We were super excited about the future. But then we found out we weren't qualified.
Yeah.
So John, talk to me about that.
That was the epitome of what we're talking about today, which is battling frustration. We're talking about battling frustration today. And we didn't want to come back with like a negative, topic or a negative vibe to the podcast. Believe me, guys, it's not what this is going to be. This is going to be like all of our podcasts. We found ways to navigate it. We found things that were helpful to us, and we're going to pass that along to you. So, but it was tough, man, because like you said, we had a lot of our eggs in that basket. And what we mean by that is we designated probably about 3 months straight of getting all of that organized, because the grant process is extensive. Yeah. And inside of that grant process, we built an entire curriculum for almost up to 2 years for what we call the First Chance program. And we put a lot of time, energy, and effort into it, applying for that grant, which was brand new to us. We had no idea what we were doing that entire process. Put a lot of time into that, and then get that email that says we weren't qualified. Not that we didn't get it, but we weren't qualified. And I think the wording and the verbiage on the grant itself never specifically said that small businesses or LLCs could not apply for this grant. And it was everything we needed it to be as far as what the grant was itself. And then when it comes back where, in all likelihood, they never even opened it up.
Yeah.
That they just saw we were a small business and said, nope, because that's what the explanation was. Small businesses are not qualified for this grant. And it was like, well, what the fuck, Yeah. So it was a big kick in the gut, man. And I remember that night you were gone for the weekend, and I got the email. I'm like, do I tell him? Do I not tell him? And so I shot you the text right away. I'm like, I don't want to know. I'm gonna tell him. And I know you were the same way. Like that whole night, man, I was mad. Like a level of frustration I haven't felt probably before, for like what I wanted personally, and for us personally. And So like we kind of had to hold on to that for a few nights until we could reconnect till you got back, and we had a good, I think, conversation in my gym that night when we were kind of filming some content for our programs and talked through a lot. A lot of that is kind of what we have on paper here today.
Yeah. I mean, that conversation was huge.
It was great.
And I could feel that because you started it off too.
Yeah.
And, when people are battling frustration, it's stress, anxiety, irritability, anger. And we were really holding that in. I mean, I myself, that night when you told me, I was more reserved. I told Val right away because she knew how much work we put in, how much we wanted this.
Yeah.
We've been very vocal with our friends talking about it.
Yep.
And so then when I told her, she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Are you okay?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, No.
Yeah.
I'm really angry. And I'm very disappointed. And so then, luckily, when you told me, we were putting the boys down. We were at the hotel, so I basically just went to sleep.
Yeah.
And then the next morning, it was still in my mind.
Oh yeah.
And I remember even in the car ride, I'm still trying to look things up. Like, what else can we do? What else can we do? Continue to kind of take little steps or continue to push through. But man, it was just so upsetting. And then when you brought up the conversation, we had a conversation where you're like, because we both felt it. We put all of our eggs in one basket, which meant we weren't really taking other steps forward in other areas of our business.
Yep.
We were still creating the wellness content for our ECEs.
Yep.
But other than that,
we weren't doing public speaking events in that time.
Yeah.
Every night we were doing stuff for the grant. I think disappointed is the key word there, like you said.
Yeah.
It really disappointed us.
Yeah.
Like we were mad, but my anger was short-lived.
Mm-hmm.
My disappointment spanned days.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And we have here some common items impacted by frustration and consistent frustration. And like you said, stress, anxiety, irritability, anger, but lower patience, your tolerance, and your decreased cognitive function, emotional exhaustion, negative self-perception, impulsivity, and even sleep disturbances, right? And I know I felt that for a few nights where I just couldn't turn my mind off like I normally can. And but it was disappointment, and all those eggs in that basket, all that time spent, it felt like we just stood still for 3 months.
Yeah. So then we had to start to build momentum again.
Exactly, and that's where that conversation that night kicked us off. It kind of put a cap on it. We kind of like buried it, if you will, right? We kind of like a funeral for the grant process.
We definitely had to vent.
Yeah.
We had to air our grievances.
Yeah.
We had to air our frustration.
Right.
Because you and I both know that we internalized the most of it. We were texting each other a little bit. I think we just texted, "Hey, that's super disappointing.
Yeah.
That sucks.
Yep.
Frustrated." But that was that.
Yeah.
And then on Sunday, we knew we were here to see each other to record content, and that's when we really aired it out.
Yeah.
Man, we saw so much possibility
For sure.
with that grant that we were just so upset that we had to figure it out again.
Yeah.
Because we've been grinding for a long time now.
Yeah.
Probably since 2021.
Yeah.
We've been grinding.
Yeah.
And so now it almost felt like, damn, we gotta keep grinding.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, we talked about this before, where, man, we're working a full-time job. We're working this Sunday to Thursday. We're having to make sacrifices even during the day.
Yeah.
We're still meeting with people doing
Yeah.
this during our full-time job.
Oh, yeah.
And you and I have gotten, a couple times, we've gotten kind of nervous. We're
Yeah.
like, how the hell do we step away from our full-time job for
Yeah.
a couple hours to focus on growing model mindset?
Yeah.
We're kind of like, hey, we just do it, we get back, we continue to
Yeah,
venture
right.
forward. So with this, it was an opportunity for us to recalibrate.
Yeah.
Okay, that sucks, but now where do we go from here?
Right. And it was a great opportunity for us to ask ourselves the key question of like, yes, where do we go from here? But how do we move past this feeling though?
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like we I think we kind of had a good idea of what was next or like what we had to focus on then. But like, how do you shake that feeling though? You know what I mean? Because it doesn't just go away.
Yeah.
And what makes frustration so hard to keep from impacting other parts of what we're trying to do, right? Well, how do we keep that frustration from impacting all the other things now? And I think the biggest obstacle that the people who listen to this probably can relate to, or maybe they don't realize it, that goes with frustration is you're going to get most frustrated from the things you care most about, which is kind of the catch-22, because you're going to look at and feel the things you care about the most. And in our case, you know, it was one of the things we care about the most is our business, right? We cared deeply about what we do, and we cared really deeply about that grant because it was providing us potential freedom and providing us a lot of really positive impacts of what we were going to be doing with the program. So you have that on one hand where it's like what you care about so much is such a great thing. But then when what you care about so much disappoints you, like we talked about with the grant, it hurts that much more. So I kind of, in my head, I'm like, all right, so what is frustration then? And to me, I came up with frustration is life's biggest test. It's going to test you over and over. It's like a crazy bad relationship where it's like, show me how much you love me. And I'm going to make you show me how much you love me. I'm going to test you and see how much you love me, right? And that's what the things you care about most are. And that's what, in our case, our business is. It's like that crazy relationship that's going to make us prove to them over and over again, you're sticking around, right? Like, you're not going anywhere, right? And that's what the test is frustration. Can you battle that frustration? Can you handle it? And then can you move forward from it? And I think we did that. But it's going to test you, and it's not going to be the last time we get tested on this thing, man.
Yeah, that's well said. That's
Thank you.
very well said.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's, and I think a lot of people can understand that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Especially with like marriages, you know, with your kids, you know, you get frustrated with them all the time.
Right.
But at the end of the day, you love them more than anything. So you're always going to
Right.
put up, no, I shouldn't say put up with that, but you are going to put in the work
Right.
to help them, right? And, you know, you and I both said too, we're still going.
Yeah.
Like, it wasn't a question.
No.
It was, we're still going. And I think it's important for us to talk about the ways to battle frustration.
Yeah.
And the first one is take action. You got to stack small wins and change the momentum. You and I talked about it before.
Mm-hmm.
We kind of lost momentum and we had to build that back up.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, you and I talk about this quote from Jim Quick all the time. It's little by little, a little becomes a lot.
Yeah.
So just start slowly picking up those little wins. You know, those little steps,
Mm-hmm.
because the side effect is starting to accomplish goals.
Yeah.
And so when we started to build momentum back by taking action, we started getting public speaking events.
Mm-hmm.
We started getting more action within our business. We
Mm-hmm.
started getting contacted more. We started putting more, I would say, focus on marketing ourselves,
Yeah.
growing ourselves.
Yeah.
And so then, of course, we started to build momentum. We have a lot more networks and resources now that we can leverage
for
as
sure.
well. So that's also huge, taking action.
Yeah. And we really did immediately.
Mm-hmm.
You know, even that night, I remember I told myself that. And that was in the midst of me being mad and really just wanting to kind of like go into bed. You know what I mean? Like, I put the kids to bed with Danny that night, and I was like, I remember she asked me, you know, she came downstairs and I was on my computer because I told myself, go downstairs and find contacts and find them now. You know, so I just felt like I had to do something in that moment. And I really don't even know like maybe what I was exactly looking for. I was looking for more contacts in that field. So who else can we contact and ask them why, or ask them how can we apply for other ones, or, you know, what we've been doing. But I told myself, you gotta do something. You can't just go to bed. You can't just, you know, rot in this. Do something. And I stumbled upon some contacts that night. I said, I got these. Let's look them over on, you know, Sunday or Monday. And so like right away, yes, like taking action was huge. But it didn't mean that, again, that's one step. It didn't mean because I took action I felt better afterwards. Because I didn't. You know, I remember Danny asked me, she's like, do you want to talk about it? She just came upstairs and then she asked about it. Like, she even said to me, why are you sitting like that? Because I must have been slouching. And I was like, you know, I probably just brushed it off. And She said something to me, and I told her. And so she asked me in bed, she's like, do you want to like talk about it? And I was like, no. So like I took action and I did something and I got contacts. It actually did turn into some good conversations that we had. We had some good meetings with those people. But it was still like, I still felt like shit.
Yeah.
Right? So that's why, you know, we have a collection of these things. There's not just one, but consistent action has helped us.
Yeah.
One night of action maybe wouldn't have. Consistent action is what helped us get out of that. And that's a major step, part one.
Yeah, and the next one is be willing to change course from your original plan. We talked about that as well.
Yeah.
We were really pushing on the reentry work from the grant, but then we had to say, okay, collectively, where do we feel we should take it?
Right.
And I think that was a good thing about talking it through, is that you and I both had some ideas, and not only did we talk about ideas, we came up with like, okay, I'm going to do this, you're going to do that. Like we both kind of said, hey, I'm going to focus on this, and then you're like, I'm going to focus on this piece. So then now we're there, we started to build momentum.
Yeah, and you did a really good job with that too, because you didn't lose sight. Like we didn't just quit trying to go after the grant and quit our first chance program. That thing is very much still alive. It's still happening. It's still, all these things are still happening. It's just, it's a different course now. And you did a great job of finding really key contacts in this span that we've been working through now.
Well, thank you.
And it's a different approach though, because it's a different way that we can be a part of a grant and maybe not have one ourselves, be a part of one. And we learned that by taking action and contacting people and changing our course and approach on the grant.
Because they taught us something new that we didn't know.
Exactly, and that was from you taking action, reaching out to somebody that I never heard of, you never heard of until then, having contacts and conversations with them, and they told us what to do. And then boom, now we have some more maybe avenues to work with that we didn't think about before.
Yeah, creative.
So like step one of taking action bled into step two, which was changing course a little bit.
Yeah. And then even, and it's funny how we have this, but even, okay, so the next one is step away for a brief time and recalibrate.
Yep.
So even during that time, I felt we kind of had like a little bit of a break about growing our wellness program because we saw that we could really grow the reentry work on lowering recidivism rate in Connecticut. Then we're like, okay, let's focus more on growing the wellness programs, which we did that conference, which met a lot of great people.
Awesome.
And then we're like, okay, we're also going to meet with these people, which actually led to some contacts for the reentry work.
Exactly.
So it all worked out.
It does.
You know, which is great.
It does, right. Yeah. So like we were there for our wellness program, which is mainly education based. And we ended up leaving with contacts for both education based, but also for our recidivism in our first chance program. So really, really interesting how that worked, but you never, and this is my opinion now, because we say step away, right? And maybe it's step away from the source of your frustration, which in our case was, let's say, the grant, right? We didn't step away from our business, we stepped away from the source.
Yeah. And
we got a little bit of a breather, and we said, all right. And we had signed up for this conference back in the spring, so like it was just perfect timing. You know what I mean? Like we got a kick in the ass from the grant, and then a few weeks later, it's like, all right, you got to prep for this conference coming up. You got 2 full days down in Mystic to deal with 1,000 people. So it was good timing, but we never stepped away from everything. And I want to make that clear. Right. I don't want people to think they can just walk away because of that. It could be hard to jump back into.
Oh yeah, totally.
So
no, that's a good call.
So step 4 here. This one was hard for me. I'll be honest with you. Learn to not take things personally. Now, I didn't take not getting the grant personally. That frustration I didn't take personally, that I was feeling. And I'll be vulnerable here for a minute. And I think I've told you about this, and maybe not in this way, but in this process, obviously, I wanted us to get the grant so bad because we saw how it could change our lives personally and professionally. But there was also a small piece of me, and the more I think about it, maybe not so small, that wanted to say to everybody by getting that grant who thinks this is a not serious thing, a play thing we do, a hobby that we do, to shove it down their throats and be like, no, like this is for real, and we put in a lot of work, and like this program that we have is now justified because of this grant. And when we didn't get that grant, and I didn't have that feeling of being able to be like, I told you so, that felt personal to me, where it was like I had to step back and be like, no, remember why you're doing it. You're not doing it to say I told you so. You're doing it to help all these guys that you're meeting inside of this prison. You're doing it to grow your business with someone I trust more than anyone in my life now. Like, that's what you're doing it for. You're not doing it to say I told you so. But there was a part of me in that moment that I hurt personally, because like in my back of my mind I was like, they're still gonna think that this is a hobby and not a full-fledged business, and that bothered me personally.
I mean, I totally could see that.
Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Because to me, also, the grant was validation. It was validation that we do know what we're talking about, that we do know what we're doing, that we're trusted now.
Yeah, majorly trusted.
Yeah. So I took it personally too, man.
Yeah.
Especially because I was so vocal with a lot of my friends.
Yeah.
We get a lot of support from people that we talk about our program with, and to not even just have the opportunity with the grant for them to be like, hey, we did review it, you weren't accepted because of this.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, we could still apply for it, but we couldn't.
Yeah.
So it was now, I totally took it personal too.
Yeah.
But we also at the same time too, something that's not on here, it's important to not bottle it up.
Yeah.
We talked about it, and I think it's important. This effective way to battle frustration, this step isn't on there, and I think we need to add it. It's, you need to talk it through.
Yeah.
Don't bottle it up. So talk it through with either your support system, talk it through with a mentor if you have a mentor, but don't hold it in, because then it's going to come out in either in your family, could come out at work.
Yeah.
We know the body keeps the score, so that means if you're holding into that frustration, that stress, maybe you're gonna get sick.
Right.
It's a good thing we talked about it, and I even talked about it with Val after, because I felt after we had our conversation, I felt better. I felt like we could almost like turn that page.
Yeah.
And so when I talked to Val about it, I was ready to talk to her about it. Before I wasn't really ready.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because it's almost like I didn't know what our next step would be. Where were we going to focus?
Yeah.
And so after you and I had a conversation, we put it to bed, if you will. We turned that page, and now it's like, okay, let's focus here. I was able to say to Val, hey, this is where we're going to go next.
Yeah.
And she was like, okay, awesome.
Yep.
And you have to talk it through. Make sure you understand who you can talk through it with. Because if you talk through it with the wrong person, they're going to give you shit advice. Yeah. And don't take that advice seriously.
Yeah. It's a great point. What's that saying? Don't take advice from somebody you would never ask. Now what is it? Don't take criticism from somebody you never ask advice from.
Yeah.
Right.
It's huge.
So, and that's a great point, man. Like, you got to talk through it. We did it that night, right when we first had the chance to. I think we did it in our own homes, like you said, and I think that helped us figure out just why we were frustrated. Yeah. That's a big thing in this process too. Is like, figure out exactly why you're frustrated, and that's what goes back to what I was saying before. And it's like personal. I was telling myself, you're frustrated for the wrong reason. Then, if that's really why you're frustrated, then you're not doing this for the right reason. Yeah. And then I realized just really why I was frustrated was I felt disappointed. So the last one here, number 5, is huge. And it goes in every single topic we talk about, and it goes into every single facet of our business, and that is ask for help. It is not a sign of weakness to ask for help. It's not a lack of intelligence to ask for help. It's actually a sign of intelligence to ask for help, and it's a sign of bravery to ask for help. Yeah. Because you're willing to take in as much information as possible to eliminate either the frustration that's existing or the possibility of it coming in. So it's almost a defense mechanism in a way of frustration. You know what I mean? Like it's a way to arm yourself.
Yeah.
Is by asking for help, because there's always someone who could teach you something.
Absolutely. And the thing too is people want to help.
Yeah.
You know, when we reached out to the people, the contacts that we gathered for reentry, when we reached out to them, we were saying that we wanted to talk with them about our program and getting their feedback and their guidance.
Yeah.
When you set it up like that, people want to provide their feedback and their advice, especially when you're basically saying, hey, I really value the work that you're doing, and it's admirable. You're already saying to them, hey, I'm patting you on the ass here.
Yeah, right,
you know,
exactly.
I just want some of your time
Yeah.
and your feedback and guidance, and people are willing to give that.
They are.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean you have to take all the feedback and guidance that you get to.
Right.
Like you'll understand what works for you and what doesn't, and be respectful of people's time. Be respectful of the time they're giving you.
Yeah.
But always ask for it, even if there's a nugget that you can take away from a 30-minute conversation. We've had many of those the last few months where we've had, long meetings, and in the middle of it we're going, man, like this isn't what we were looking for. But then and 2 minutes later it's like, oh, we could use that though. You know what I mean? So just because the whole conversation isn't helpful, it doesn't mean a piece of it isn't. Yeah. So be mindful of that as well. Don't just dismiss conversations midway through because you're not getting what you're looking for. Okay. But man, it's been what, since May since we've been on the mics here? Probably around about?
I don't even know. I know Chase was the last one.
And that was probably before summertime. So, because he got married in summer, right? So long before that. And so, it's been 4 or 5 months now. It is good to be back on the mics. It's good back to be talking about some stuff that means a lot to us. And like we said, we weren't going to come back with some, downer episode. Frustration's a real thing.
Oh yeah.
We're in a great place now, though.
Yeah.
I think the frustration propelled us in a way.
Yeah.
It made us kind of really crave that momentum again.
Yeah.
Like it really did.
Yeah.
And I think now we have a lot of it. I think we're in a good place now. And I think anyone who takes these tools away from today, who's battling some frustration, can be in a good place if they kind of apply these practices as well.
Absolutely. I mean, everybody battles frustration.
Yeah.
It's a great topic because people now can understand that, hey, if I'm frustrated, it just means that I care.
Yeah.
So understand why you're frustrated, what you can do to maybe overcome it, maybe take plan B, but understand it's part of life.
Yeah.
And it's only because you care and you want to keep going.
That's it. All right, guys. It's good to be back. We're going to be back on a weekly basis now, right?
Are we?
Are we?
I don't know if we decided that. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like we'll be in a good space to be back weekly.
All right.
I feel like we'll be in a good space.
Okay.
All right, guys. So we'll catch you on here again. Keep an eye out on our IG, on our YouTube. Follow us if you guys don't. We appreciate the love as always, and we will catch you guys very soon. We'll talk to you guys later.